Anybody know what I'm doing? Except pacing, trying to figure out what's next to say. It's probably part of it too. And I'm thinking, okay, 4 feet 3 inches is about what? 3, 4, something like that. I'm just trying to get an idea of the size of the boat. I don't know. I'm always curious about that. I guess in 1986 they found remnants of a first century boat on the northwest shores of the Sea of Galilee, and it was about 27 feet by 7.5 by 4. I'm thinking that's more like a big canoe. I wonder how many of the disciples actually sat in that particular boat. They said other boats were with them. And how would Jesus sleep in this sort of small boat that they had? This short little passage brings up a lot of questions for me. Okay, he was with all these experienced fishermen. The storm came up. For one thing, how come they didn't know there was a storm coming with their experienced fishermen? Well, of course, those things probably happen, of course. And then secondly, when trouble comes, why are they asking Jesus? Well, I mean, Jesus was what? A carpenter? Why would you ask a carpenter what to do with a boat when you're an experienced fisherman? Is he going to say, okay, I want you to kind of steer the boat into the waves so it doesn't come over the side, and I want you to start... No, I think they were looking for something more from him. In the Gospel New Testament, in seas were kind of symbolizing chaos. Chaos was all around them, symbolized by the water crashing into the boat, being swamped. Gunnels are pretty tall. How many people are in the boat? I guess it would matter how much is pushing down in the water, but it's got to be some pretty big waves for that to happen. I imagine the fishermen were pretty, they may not have seen anything like that because it sounds like they are on the edge of despair. Are you not cared that we're perishing together? They've already given up. That's amazing. I'm sure they're just bailing like mad, trying to get that water out, but as soon as they bucket full out, another 2 buckets come in. So they're looking for Jesus for something because apparently Jesus is special, let's say. In previous episodes before this, Jesus was healing people from their sicknesses and things like that. Demon-possessed people and all kinds of things. So maybe it's possible that there's something about Jesus that might be able to help, that we're looking for Jesus for something more. Are we looking for something more from Jesus? So they turn to Jesus and of course with a word. 2 words, 3 words. Peace. 3 words. Peace, be still. Everything is calm now. They can finally bail out the rest of the water. They can finally get the boat to a nice level, and they can go back. Where? Home? Or are they going to continue their journey on to the land of the Gentiles? And the other thing that strikes me about this, I don't know about you either, but when this translation says great awe, other translations say great fear. So after Jesus calms the storm, they were afraid, probably more so afraid than during the storm. Why would that be? Oh, who is this? What is he capable of doing? I hope he's on my side. I hope I don't cross him, because it looks like not only have we seen him heal the body, but we've also seen him control nature. Whoa. That's a pretty powerful person, God, what have you. I imagine they're stumped. What's coming next? Fortunately for them, that Jesus doesn't rely on their faith to save them, but just with a couple of words makes it happen. Is it our faith that saves us? Jesus says, you still have no faith. And yet, Jesus saves them. For us today, is it our faith that saves us? Interesting question. Something to think about, something to ponder. Or does Jesus save us anyway? So Jesus is in the midst of these disciples. Chaos is all about, and he has a way of controlling that and taking care of the problem of chaos. And Jesus is sleeping in the midst of chaos and as at peace and trusting you imagine he's trusting the expertise of the fishermen to get him to where he's going next. I imagine also that he's pretty exhausted with being with people all day and doing all these things. Chaos all around, the boats of safety. Well, it wasn't safe for very long. Our ship of safety can be swamped by many things that pound on us and come over the sides, and sometimes we're not prepared, and we're prepared, but still things can happen to us, and we're being swamped, and we yell out, Jesus, save us! Don't you care that we're perishing? And Jesus is sitting right there in the midst of all that, calm, asleep, and with a few words and actions through his words, things happen. The presence of God is known and is felt in a unique kind of a way, not felt like before from these disciples. They're figuring out who this person of Jesus is. We have the phrase, who is this then? When Billy read Job, who is it that created the skies? Who is it that did this? Who is it? All rhetorical questions from God to Job. Question, who is it? Who is it? And we receive the question again from the disciples, who is this? It's not, how did you do that, Jesus? It's who? Who are you that you're able to do this? A much broader question, a deeper question. Who is this Christ for us? What do we expect from this Jesus Christ that stilled the storms and healed the demonics and teach to people and preach to people and raise people from the dead and all these kinds of things? What do we expect of this Jesus in our lives? Do we expect a mighty hand to come in chaos in our lives and scoop us up and save us? It can feel like that at times when we're really, really down and hurting. It can feel like that sometimes. There's that hand of God pulling us up. That God's presence is more felt than any other time in our lives. In the world that we know, the chaos is going on throughout the country, throughout the world. Is God present in those moments of chaos? Is God there? Or is better the question, can we recognize God in these places of chaos? And how does God look at those times? What is the face of God of those moments? Who is this Jesus? Who is this God? And how do we figure out who Jesus is? How do we figure out who we are? How do we define ourselves who we are? Is it by our words? Possibly, yeah. That can be an effect. Is it by our actions? Probably more so our actions than our words. We have a presidential campaign happening, don't we? I think. Yeah, that's right. November is the time that we vote and the president either resumes or we have a new president. The campaign trails, what happens? There's people saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to continue this. Or I want to look at, building up the middle class. Or I want to see more jobs and that kind of thing. And we're sitting there, and I don't know if you're like I am, you're thinking, okay, put your money where your mouth is. Let's see. Words are cheap. Come on. Let's see some things happen now. Talk about the middle class, but what about the poor? Let's talk about them too, and what we can do for them, the vulnerable. We identify our candidates by not only their words, but more so from what they are able to do and accomplish in how they can work with people and the Congress and Senate and their governing bodies and how that all works. Jesus' words are mighty, but his actions are even more so. Jesus has the titles of Messiah and all these kinds of things creeping up, but his actions speak louder than words. His actions in the midst of chaos speak volumes. I am sure these disciples are thinking, oh my goodness, can it be true? All these things we read about in the past in our Torah, are they coming true now in this person? We're seeing the healing. We're seeing all these signs. Can you believe it? And Jesus is there. The presence of God is in this small space, making a huge impact on their lives. On these few people that are able to see what he is doing and what he's up to. On his way from Israel, or the land, the Jewish land, across the sea to the land of the Gentiles, the birds of the air, as we talked about last week. Jesus' mission going from here to there, expanding outward. And in the midst of this journey, there's chaos. The waters get rocked, the waters are churning, the wind comes up, and there's almost no escape, even for the tried and true and the experts. Still, depend upon this person of Jesus to help them, to save them from being swamped in the waters of chaos. To offer some sort of peace, some sort of foundation to hold on to. I look around and I see foundations that are strong and deep among you all. It's amazing to see what I see when I look in the faces of people here, sitting here. The deep, deep faith, the foundation that's there, been there for years, and continuing to build. Sometimes it's like those glaciers, especially the Germans and Norwegians and those people that don't say much. Or behind the scenes, it's like those glaciers that, icebergs, that's what it is. All this iceberg, you see this much of the iceberg above the water, right? No, but you got so much more underneath the surface that you never have encountered. That's what I see. That's what I encounter. The Jesus who forms that iceberg and slowly builds it up. And it peaks out of the water and people can see it. And at times, we can see the work of Jesus in people's lives. On June 15th, I want to celebrate what that is. What do we do in our lives to still the storms? Maybe in our lives and in the lives of other people. What kind of service do we do for our neighbor, our fellow companions, our workers, our co-workers, whomever? How do we become that peace that Jesus gives to us through his life, through his being? That's what I want to find out. I want to find out what's on the surface from what's below. I want to find out what our wows are, how we minister in our daily lives to other people, how we can be the Jesus in other people's lives to still the storm and offer some sense of peace. God is in the midst of our lives. The question is, do we recognize that? And do we add that to our foundation of faith? God is in the boat, our boats, helping us, sometimes even when we don't ask or realize, when we have no faith or very little faith. You get the sense that Jesus is still there. The disciples had a sense that there was something that Jesus could do, not knowing for certain. God implants that in us. There's just something about that God that draws us near and helps us in the time of need and is there to still the storms in our hearts and give us a sense of peace throughout the chaos in our lives. Jesus is there.